Good morning once again, and welcome to the Haven Financial Group radio show. Feel free to give us a call at 612-504-8400. Visit us online, havenfinancialgroup.com. All kinds of retirement tools, all our educational events, upcoming events, client events. We like to have as much fun with this retirement topic, all these retirement topics, as we possibly can, even though sometimes they're not the most exciting. We'll do our best to keep it exciting and simple. So if you're just tuning in, if you want more information on any of these topics, reach out to us. It might transform your financial future or make a difference. And guess what? If we can add something to your retirement, we'd love to do it.
Lance Larsen is with us today, CPA at Haven Financial Group. So, Lance, we've been talking about taxes, and obviously this is tax season, and so people have taxes on their minds. But for you, taxes are certainly a year-round situation. Let's start this segment by talking about maybe some of the mistakes that you see folks make throughout the course of the year that costs people a lot of money. And then we want to talk about some of the great things that you've seen people do in the past. So give us a sense of maybe some things that people do that aren't a great idea when it comes to their taxes.
So one of the biggest things that I see people doing is they're pulling out more money than they need to, which then forces them into a higher tax bracket, which means that they're paying more taxes on those dollars, and especially if it's on dollars that they don't need. And conversely, I have people who aren't pulling out enough. That, hey, I only need to have $80,000 in retirement every year. Well, you could go up to almost $100,000 and still pay it at 12%. We know that the tax rates will go up in the future, so why wait to pay higher tax rates in the future when we could pull that money out today and pay it at the lower ones?
Okay. So that's one of the mistakes that you see folks make. Tell me about some of the stories that you have, or give us a story of someone who did some things, came in, saw you, and you were able to save them.
Well, this morning was actually a really great example. So for 2025, the 12% tax bracket capped out at $96,000. We had a couple that came in at $95,000 of taxable income. And that was due to a bunch of planning that we were able to do, that we came right up to that limit, and we didn't pay a cent over in the 22 and paid everything at that 12. And we were so happy with that one.
Oh, that's so great. There you go. A practical example that just happened in the last 24 hours. That's terrific. Let's talk a little bit about some of the things you've seen people do in the past, meaning, like, for example, moving to other states. Is that a tax solution?
Well, I'll start with that before Lance elaborates a little bit more.
Sure.
We live in a very high tax state, and I bet you listeners are shaking their head right now because they already know that. So thanks so much for sharing, Larry, because I already knew we live in a high tax state. Well, at the end of the day, guess what we hear? Well, some of those other states look really impressive, like South Carolina, Texas, Florida, Arizona, South Dakota, et cetera, et cetera. Because why? There's 8 states that have no income tax. Wow, that sounds really appealing. It can be, but you have to be careful of other risks, other costs, closing cost taxes, lifestyle, home price expectations. What we find is the grass isn't always greener on the other side. In some cases, it can make a difference. So we want to talk those things through before we just pack our bags and head somewhere and go and end up finding out, well, that wasn't exactly what I thought. So it's why we like people to work with somebody that is having a discussion, ongoing discussion. Does it make sense? You know, we've talked a lot about taxes during the show today, and you say, oh my goodness, is taxes really that big a deal? It is. By making the wrong decisions, tax inefficiency can cost you a lot of money. You know, not having an investment team or a wealth management partner that is conducting things over the year, like tax loss harvesting, that can really benefit your tax situation. Or maybe you are charitable and you don't need that required minimum distribution. Well, qualified charitable distributions, use that in your favor and to the recipient's favor. Maybe you have a big income year and you're charitable and you maybe want to take advantage of donor advised funds. You know, maybe that is foreign to you and you don't even know what that is. but you're charitable. Maybe that could be applicable in your situation. And, our wealth management investment team, we're not small. We manage with Charles Schwab and Fidelity, and donor advised funds are available through those platforms. So these are the areas where we can help people make informed decisions. Not that they can't do it on their own, but what we find is oftentimes they don't know the nuances of this. And yeah, they might know investments, but they might not know the other parts of the investments that go with it. So again, it's just, we're not preaching to the choir here. We're just out trying to help people make good informed decisions. Because let's face it, most of us worked hard for every single dollar we've earned. I grew up on a dairy farm in Candy, Ohio, Minnesota. Mom and dad are still working. Those were hard-earned dollars. Listeners are listening and go, we're 65 and 70. We're still working. I get it. I hear about it. We hear it weekly, and we want to put those dollars to good use. And some may argue that giving it all to the government maybe not of the greatest use, but I'll let them decide for themselves.
Absolutely. Absolutely. When people come in and sit down with you, Lance, I would imagine you're looking at all kinds of things, like maybe reassessing where they are invested or when they're considering taking Social Security. These are all issues that can impact their tax bill, and maybe things that people aren't even thinking about that have to do with taxes.
Absolutely, Kim. I kind of had this conversation with a client the other day that when you walk into a Home Depot or Menards, you have how many aisles of tools that you can choose from? Well, they looked at me like, Lance, there's tons of aisles. I'm like, exactly. So how do you know which tool to use? And then they thought about it like, well, I guess it depends on what project that I'm doing. And I was like, exactly. So it's kind of the similar of idea with taxes, that there are lots of tools out there for us, but it depends upon you as the individual. So as Larry said, people move to different states. Well, is that a good option for you? Well, some people don't want to move because of family that's here in Minnesota, that the grandkids are here. They don't want to be that far away. Well, then moving to a different state may not be the best option. Then Larry again mentioned, what about qualified charitable distributions? This is a great tax tool. But Lance, I'm agnostic. I don't go to church. I don't have any charities that I really believe in. Well, then is this a right tool for you? Again, no. So this is where we sit down and we kind of have to talk about your life, what you want to accomplish with your money, what's important to you. With investments, do you want something that is going to go up and down and have a high volatility? Well, typically no. In retirement, Larry will preach to us on that one, and he's kind of giving me a little bit of look where I say, nope, Lance, that's a bad idea right there. But again, there are clients out there that are saying, let it ride, bet it all on black. And then that's what they want to do. Okay, well, we don't think that's a great idea, but if that's what you want to do, it is your money.
That's right.
But this is one things that we kind of look at is we need to have those discussions. We need to find out what's important to you. We need to find out kind of what makes you tick. Then from there, then we can find the right tools and the right fit that match your profile, your personality.
Mm-hmm. So, Larry, some final thoughts when it comes to tax season that you'd like to share with the listenership.
Well, here's what I know. A lot of times I just see people have the wrong types of investments and the wrong types of accounts. You should have certain types in IRAs, certain types in Roths, and certain types in brokerage accounts, and they have a lot of times the complete opposite ones, or they're generating all this dividends and interest and their income's already high and they're not really getting the yield on dividends and interest because it's going to taxes. So just having it in the right place, the right accounts, understanding why you're doing what you're doing. We've had some all-time record stock market highs recently. I've had clients say, you know what, avoiding the human greed factor, I want to take some of this cream off the top and lock in some of these gains. I know human nature is greed and we want to, always hit home runs, but hey, hitting a single, having calmer waters rather than whitecaps, that's what our clients are looking for. The problem is most people don't know how much risk they're taking until the market goes down, and then they make bad decisions. That's what we want to avoid.
612-504-8400. That's how you reach the folks at Haven Financial Group. We've been talking about taxes today, and I'll bet we've talked about something today that sort of left some questions with you as listeners, and you would love to have those questions answered. Again, give them a call at 612-504-8400. Lance, they're taking appointments right now. He has already mentioned that. So if you'd like to get an appointment, you need to make that call immediately. And if maybe you've already had your taxes done this year, but you realize that you need a better strategy for years to come, then make yourself an appointment so that after we finish preparing taxes, we can start planning for the future. I know, Larry, you feel strongly about that. We can all have tax preparers, but planning for the future is really what makes a difference.
It is. And in closing, we talked a lot on taxes this show and some investments, but all the retirement puzzle pieces. We just had a wills, trust, and legacy planning. Estate planning is so important. Long-term care and life insurance, it's a big part of our discussion this year. Exploring long-term care options that a lot of listeners don't know that's out there. Doing a life insurance review to make sure your life insurance you've had for a long time is going to do what it's supposed to. You're approaching Medicare age. Exploring Medicare, which healthcare is underestimated. It can be very, very complicated. The tax strategy, Social Security, when should I take it? Why should I take it? And again, your tax preparation, give us a call, the planning process, all of these things, which may seem so overwhelming, but I'll tell you, 10 and a half years at Haven Financial Group, the goal was always to get multiple personalities in all these retirement areas. And I love when I hear a compliment every week. Wow, it's so nice to be able to go to one place and all of this communication. And that is truly a compliment. And we thank the listeners for listening every single week. And we look forward to next week. 612-504-8400 or havenfinancialgroup.com.